On November 2nd, 2018, a routine call turned into the starting point for one of the most shocking cases the city had ever seen. Gregory Logan Ramos, a young man with a dark secret, called the police department after what seemed like a common burglary. But what really happened that night? And why did Gregory's behavior leave Sheriff Mike Cheeto so intrigued? A loving mother, a kind stepfather. But behind the appearances, a tragedy was unfolding. Welcome to the Criminal Chronicles channel. If you're fascinated by unexplainable mysteries and intriguing puzzles, this is the right place for you. Welcome to another video filled with sinister enigmas and stories that will captivate you from beginning to end. If you love unraveling intriguing cases and diving into mysterious narratives, don't waste any time and join us right now. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any details of the mysteries we're going to explore together from now on. And of course, if you can hit that like button early in the video, know that it makes all the difference so I can keep bringing engaging content to you. Let's dive headfirst into another intriguing journey. Let's go. On November 2nd, 2018, Sheriff Mike from the Volusia County Sheriff's Department received a call that would change the course of that night. It was a young man who contacted the department, claiming to have been the victim of a burglary at his residence. He described how he found his house in complete chaos, with numerous valuables missing. When the sheriff inquired about the whereabouts of his parents, the young man, identified as Gregory Logan Ramos, reported that his father was at work at the time and that he had been unable to reach his mother, prompting him to make the call to the police department. Shortly after the call, Sheriff Mike Cheeto was at the crime scene, along with other law enforcement officers. The young man who had remained at the house showed them the evidence of the chaotic scene resulting from the alleged robbery. The sheriff and his team began the necessary investigations to trace any leads on the supposed criminal. As they combed through the scene, they noticed that various valuables had disappeared, including a PlayStation 4, jewelry, televisions, and a shotgun. However, upon arriving at the house, they saw a car parked and assumed that the mother had already returned. Surprisingly, Gregory insisted that he had been unable to reach her. The sheriff, a seasoned officer with years of experience, began to grow suspicious. He knew that unless the car was faulty, anyone with a car would use it to get home. He questioned the boy about the condition of the vehicle, to which Gregory assured him it was in perfect working order. This response only deepened the officer's doubts, making it increasingly clear that something was being concealed. Despite the adverse situation, young Gregory appeared surprisingly calm. He hadn't attempted to communicate with his mother, something most young people would do in similar circumstances. The peculiarity of the situation intensified with each passing moment. Time continued to tick away, and Gregory's mother, whom he pointed to as his only cohabiting family member, remained missing. Furthermore, several gaps in the narrative made the situation even more enigmatic. As a result, investigators undertook the task of tracking down the young man's mother's workplace and establishing contact. The response they received was unsettling. Gail had not shown up for work that day, and efforts to contact her had been fruitless throughout the day. Officer Mike was informed of this and understood that it was imperative to interrogate the 15-year-old who had reported the crime. After a few minutes of questioning, the sheriff extracted the crucial information he needed. Gregory Logan Ramos claimed to have taken his mother's life in the early hours of the morning. Gregory lived with his mother and stepfather. Gail Cleavenger, his mother, had been married to his father previously. Initially, his father had won her over with affectionate gestures and expressions of love. However, over time, this attitude evolved into monstrous behavior, including constant abuse, leading to their separation. Gail obtained custody of her son, and surprisingly, they maintained a close relationship. Gregory's childhood unfolded in a loving environment. After his father's departure, Gail transformed into a caring mother, providing him with all the financial comforts and catering to his whims. They spent a lot of time together. Gail pursued her profession in various architectural offices in Florida. She proved to be a highly competent professional, having completed her architecture degree at the University of Miami in 1995. Later, she pursued a postgraduate degree in international studies. Her remarkable intelligence motivated her to encourage her son to excel in his academic journey, with the expectation that, in a few years, he would pursue the career he was passionate about. After several years of being single, Gail crossed paths with Daniel, whom she married and later lived with alongside Gregory. For the young man, this change didn't represent an abrupt transition. Daniel turned out to be a kind-hearted man, taking on the role of a father figure in the boy's life voluntarily. However, even after her marriage, Gail continued to spend time with her son. Together, they practiced martial arts, both holding black belts. Gregory's family dynamic operated harmoniously, possibly with an excess of care and attention, ironically contributing to shaping the young man into an individual with selfish inclinations, to the extent of committing such an unbelievable act as taking his own mother's life. On November 1st, 2018, Gregory returned home late at night after a full day of studying. Upon arriving home, he was greeted by his mother as usual. However, something was different this time. She was visibly upset because she had just received her son's report card. The document revealed a failure in one of his subjects, which deeply disappointed Gail. She questioned why this had happened when she provided everything he needed, and his only responsibility was to study. The young man initially found himself at a loss for words in the situation, but he didn't appreciate the tone with which his mother was reprimanding him. Instead of acknowledging his own mistakes, he got into a heated argument with her. He argued that he wasn't to blame and shifted the blame onto his teachers, claiming he was doing the best he could. However, his mother couldn't understand his perspective and continued to scold him, threatening to impose a punishment if he didn't improve in school. The argument was gradually getting out of control. At a critical juncture, Gail communicated to her son that if he continued with his unsatisfactory attitude, she would have to call his stepfather, who was on a business trip in Seattle. This sent the young man into a panic, and his only option was to seek refuge in his room. Gregory had already been secluding himself in his room for some time. His mother attempted to enter several times but was blocked, leading her to withdraw to her own room, trying to control her frustration. Meanwhile, the young man inside his room paced anxiously back and forth. He felt consumed by fear and oppressed by the circumstances resulting from his mother's actions. It was as if the world he knew was crumbling around him. At this moment, Gregory was overwhelmed by anger. He couldn't contain his emotions and felt compelled to go ahead with an act that haunted him, tragically deciding to take his own mother's life due to an argument about his school grades. After staying secluded in his room for about 2 hours, around 2:30 in the morning on November 2nd, 2018, Gregory quietly made his way to his mother's room. There, aiming to act with utmost discretion, he opened the door and slipped through the darkness. In the dim light, he noticed indistinct outlines, which he quickly recognized as his mother's motionless body. In the darkness, Gregory approached, positioning himself next to her, and for a moment, he saw her as the source of all his torment. Without any hesitation, without even a moment of doubt, he lunged at his mother's neck with both hands, initiating the fatal act of strangulation. Gail embarked on a desperate struggle, expending all her energy, even though her initial efforts had been in vain. At first, she imagined it might be a robbery, or that some intruder had invaded her home, attempting a violent act. However, as she resisted the aggression, her eyes gradually adjusted to the darkness, revealing the face of the assailant who was trying to take her life. Even with a lifetime of psychological preparation, this moment was unimaginable. It was her own son, who with relentless determination was using every means at his disposal to extinguish her life. In that moment, Gail experienced a sensation of weakness. Perhaps it was more the psychological impact than a lack of air that caused her to give in. Her strength began to fade, and Gregory realized that the woman who had brought him into the world and raised him with so much love was gradually losing her strength. Nevertheless, without relenting, he continued to sink his claws into his mother's neck until she released her final breath. When Gregory was certain that his mother was no longer among the living, he experienced a chilling triumph mixed with disturbing dread, for now he faced the task of disposing of the body. With surprising calm, he began to plan each step meticulously. He called his 2 closest friends, even though it was late at night, instructing them to come to his home. Upon arrival, he shared the gruesome story with them and asked for their help in getting rid of Gail's body. Together, they carried the body to a vehicle, including shovels, and set off. Not far away, they found a church, and in haste to dispose of the body, they dug a hole nearby and placed the body there. After this macabre task, they returned to Gregory's house. The next step seemed almost like a game, to destroy everything they found and loot any valuable items, to give the impression that it was a robbery. Subsequently, the three young offenders abandoned the house and discarded the stolen items in an appropriate location. Each went to their own home. The next morning, Gregory acted calmly, as if nothing had happened. He took a shower and went to school. Hours before the usual time, he returned, and with cold composure, called the police to tell a story that he knew was worthy of an Oscar. After several days of intense searching, authorities finally located Gail's body. Interestingly, it was the two friends who had collaborated in concealing the corpse that led the police to the discovery site. Consequently, they were also arrested and now faced charges of complicity in concealing the body. Gregory, who was only 15 years old at the time, was formally charged with homicide and corpse concealment. Due to these serious charges, when he turned 17, he was sentenced to 45 years in prison, and currently his life unfolds behind bars. And so, we conclude another fascinating dive into the shadows of the world of crimes and mysteries. If you were intrigued by the twists, puzzles, and engaging narratives we explored here on the Criminal Chronicles channel, don't miss the chance to join us on this ongoing journey. Subscribe to the channel right now to not miss any electrifying episodes that are coming up. Every case, every detail meticulously investigated, depends on your support to keep happening. Leave your like, because that's what motivates us to continue bringing you quality content and meticulous investigations. Comments are also essential. Share your theories, opinions, and ideas. Your participation makes this community even richer and full of energy to unravel the biggest criminal mysteries. Remember, producing videos as engaging as this is a challenge, but with your support, we can continue to explore the stories that stir our investigative instincts. So don't waste any time. If you're not yet part of this passionate community of mysteries and intriguing crimes, click the subscribe button, activate notifications, and leave your mark in the comments and likes. Together, we will uncover the most complex secrets of the criminal underworld. Until the next video, detectives.